see it's not working yet because we didn't do anything. So what I will do now, I'll go back to my function here where I'll write all my logic to update my state. So the way you will do it is, of course, we have to call the setter function, so set to do's, because we want to update our state. Okay. Now, before we just enter the new value, whatever values we want to update. But when you're adding or doing some deep checking and all that stuff, that is not safe, okay? You have to use something called a previous state, okay? So you make sure you are reading from the latest previous state and update it, okay? So basically our setter function now will accept an arrow function which have a default value called prevState, okay? Previous state. This property, again, you call it anything you want. It's just the way because it's meaningful, I'm calling it prevState, okay? Or I call it my prev to do's, okay? To do state, okay? To be more meaningful. So I'm accessing whatever the latest previous to do state, okay? And then what I want to do is that I want to map through it because an array. So prev to the state, okay? Dot map, okay? And this is basically just normal JavaScript. To do, because you're accessing your to do item. And what we want to do is that check if my to do dot id, okay, is equal to whatever item id here, okay? So if it's equal to that id, then I want to render whatever my to do I have now, okay? So for example, the title, your user ID, all that stuff. Then just one thing I want you to change is that completed property inside my object, okay? Which I want it to be opposite of whatever I have now in my to-do item, okay? Completed. Otherwise, if the IDs are not matching, just return whatever your item you have now. Save, and let's run this again. I'll just hard reload, and there we go. So we have first a problem here. It's saying we can't read properties of undefined, okay? So basically saying this to-dos is not defined. And let me see what I have done wrong here. So I think what I have done wrong, I have here extra curly bracket, which I should remove. So let me clean up that. Click save. And I have some extra thing also here. Okay, good. Now that's cleaned up. So all what we have done basically is that when we click on the checkbox, we are passing back up to our parent component ID of the item we want to toggle the completion. Then in there we have a function that pick up that ID and make sure it's going through the latest previous state, okay? Pick that up, then map through it because it's an array, okay? Then just compare the items IDs, okay? So anyone it is matching the ID we are passing from down, okay? Then just give us back the to do, but change the completed property to the opposite, okay? And if there is no matching, just give me back whatever items I have currently, okay? So I hope this makes sense. Now let's try this and see if it's working. Check. There we go. So it is working as expected. And if you remember the profiler thing we were talking about, so now you can see that when I check, you see this one, all thing is re-rendering behind the scene, okay? And also my single item as well. So there's no perfect scenario. Again, it depends on what you need of your organization, okay? So if you need for some scenarios update the parents, this is the way to do, okay? And there'll be other ways actually to prevent the child components from re-rendering if you don't have to. Now let's use actually the profiler and see how this is working. So clean off, start recording, check the first one, stop recording, and let's see what happened. So we have one commit, which is great. Not so many waste rendering. We have my to-do item, okay, which is this one, which makes sense because we're changing the actual state, which is a hook within your component. Then we have actually the other components rendering also behind the scene, okay, which is not something I'll expect to happen. So even the memo here is not picking up the problem it is going on. And I can tell you why it's happening and how we can solve it. Now let me make this one big and let's try to profile again. So click the profiler, then just uncheck the first item, okay? And just when I do that, make sure you have eye on those highlights which is going behind the scene. There we go, and you can see it's going on each and every element and also the above scope as well. So I'm expecting that on the one on the wrapper, okay? I'm expecting around this item, but not on others. Now let's stop profiling and see why this one is happening. So good, one comment as we said before. And this is the first one in my list, okay? It say why it rendered because your prop to do has changed, which is true. I changed the completed property inside my to do, and also says because my toggle completion has been changed too, okay? And if you remember that toggle completion is a function we are passing from above parent component to my component, okay? And why it says change is because I trigger it. If you remember, if you go to our component, here, okay, I triggered the toggle completion, okay, and what happened, it says, okay, because that has been triggered, it has been changed for some reason, but I'll go in details why really. If you see the next items which didn't do anything to them, to other list, let's pick up one of them, okay, and when you click on it, it says why this rendered. It says because the prop changed toggle completion. So it's saying basically all other list items also the toggle completion has changed. Okay, so how a function can be changed? We know it is the same function. So what happened is that when we check or uncheck this checkbox, for example, okay, we are triggering an update of the state in our parent component, okay, which means when we update the state, the parent component re-renders, okay. Therefore, these functions will run again as well behind the scene. And what we'll do is that the function will be the same, but a new reference to these functions will be created. Therefore, the child components think, okay, this toggle component, or what are these functions we are passing down, okay? Handle toggle, or handle add item, or handle adding new item. It thinks that these functions really has changed. But actually they are same, it's only their reference has changed, okay? When the component re-rendered. So as use memo do for us, or not use memo, as the memo make a fix for us for the props comparison, there is a solution we can use for the functions as well, okay? So when the reference only change, it doesn't mean they actually change, right? So I don't want my comment to re-enter. So what we can do is we can import something called useCallback, which is another hook, okay? Which help us with memoizing these functions. And I don't want to go in depth about use callback in this beginner video, but check out please my React hook playlist. Will be explained in details how these hooks work. So all what I have to do basically is that wrap my function inside this use callback.
Okay, so up to now, this is amazing. You're able to create a basic application that can fetch data from an API, render it, and add items to it as well. Now, there is a little problem here with our code if you want to see from the coding perspective, okay? So our component at the moment does a lot of logic for us, okay? So this to-dos component. And usually this is not a good practice. So we have a state management going here, then we had some functions, then we have this component rendering some JSX for us as well, okay? And this throws a problem which called separation of concern, where your component is trying to do state manipulations and also rendering your UI. Okay, so there is a fix for this, and we can use something called custom hooks in React, which basically you build your own custom hook. Until now in this course, you're able to use the build ones in React, but what we'll do, we'll try to create our own custom hook that will handle fetching the data for us and also setting the state as well. Okay, so how we can do that? We can go to our project. We will not use the component folder. We'll use a new structure. We'll create a new folder under source called hooks. Okay, and again, this is not a rule really, but this is just a ways of working. Okay, and make sure your project structure is clear. So under the hook, I'll create a new file which is a hook. I'll call use to dos. Again, any hook you create should start with a use keyword, okay? That should not be .jsx, it should be just .js. So let me fix this first. And what we can do here, we can declare our function, which will be the hook. So const, and the hook always should start with a use keyword. I'll say it's use to do's. And that will be an arrow function. Then inside here, we will be doing the state management and data fetching. Okay, so whatever we're doing here. So I'll copy this lane now from here. I'll paste it right there. And same for my use effect. I will just remove it from here as well. Let me remove this comment here. And now we have to import the use state and the use effect from React. So import first React and then use state and use effect from React. Okay, great. Now our custom hook, now it will not return for us a JSX because this is a custom hook, but return for us whatever things we need. So we need now in our component, we need of course to access the state, okay? And also we need that setter function to access as well. So what I will do here, I'll just go back and return both my state to do's and also my setter function, which is set to do's. Click save, go back to my component. I'll just remove the use effect now because I don't need it. And what I will do, I'll come right here. I'll say const and I'll try to access my um, custom hook that I create, use to do's. And I have to import it. Import use to do's from. So we said it's from the hooks folder and use to do's. Let's save this. And what we'll access here, we'll access these two properties, so to do's and set to do's and set to do's as well. Let's save and let's see if our UI is still working. Okay, so it is complaining, okay, and saying that this use to do's, it's not a function. It is for a simple reason is that I created my custom hook, but I did not export it. So export default my use to do's. Save. Let's go back to our UI and there we go. Okay, so we can see our list coming. Let's try even add a new item. New, add my to do, switching, and I can see my item right there as well. So here, this is where the custom hooks can come very handy for you. Okay, so basically the custom hooks, again, they are just other functions in React that can help you to manage the separations of concern and make your actual component that render a UI for you more readable and less complex as well. So it may look scary, like first time when these custom hooks came in, I was like so scared even to try it out. But as soon as you start using it, it will be your best friend through your development life cycle as well. Okay, now let's add some more things to our custom hook, okay? So let's say, for example, if you go back to our UI, and let's hard refresh. And when I do so, for few maybe milliseconds or a second, you will see that add new item is there, but under it is empty. And it's like take few milliseconds or a second, it depends on your API call, to see the list again. Okay, so let's see that. Okay, I hope you noticed that. So it takes a little bit time to show after our UI is very visible. And why that is happening is that because in first time your component renders, of course you don't have any data, and you trigger your API call, okay, that will go and call this data from some server somewhere, and then respond back, and then you get it, and then you set your state, and then you display it, okay? So in real-time applications, of course, you need to handle this time. Okay, you have to show, for example, a loader or some spinner or anything like that, or a messaging saying that, okay, wait, we are loading something for you. So how we can do that is that we can add a new state, okay? Say const and call the state, for example, loading or is loading or anything you like. And we need a setup function, set loading, use state, and it will be initially true. And why I'm setting initially to true is that because my commands render first time, this API will be triggered, right? So my loading from the first time will be true. I don't have any data yet. And what I will do is that when my data is retrieved successfully, I want to set my loading to false. Okay? To false. Or actually before to do's. And I want to make this loading state available to my component. So I'll make sure that I import it. Oops. I'll just say loading, save, then go back to my component and try to access that new state I added. And now what you can do usually in your UI, it depends on what is the requirement for UX. But for now, I'll just say if my loading state is true, okay, then just display a text saying loading. Okay, and let's try this one out. Let's go back to our UI and let's hard reload. Let's hard reload again. So I don't see it. So what I will do, I'll just add a timer so we'll be able really to see the difference. And here I forgot also one thing is that I didn't do a return. So that's one reason really the actual problem. We're not seeing it's even flickering. So let's go back to our browser, hard reload, and we can see that is loading. And then we can see our list. Okay, so this is a very powerful thing. So all the life cycle of even your API calls, you can have a status, to store the status of your API calls. Even if there's an error, you can, for example, add a new state, okay, in here, and you can call it error, set error, and then here you'll have a try catch block, and then you can add a block where in the cache there's an error, just set the set error, okay? And then you pass that error down back to your component. And then if there's an error, then maybe you want to take them to another screen or you want to display a message saying try again or anything you want, okay? Maybe feel free to go on your own and try this out at your end. Now, let's remove this set timeout from here. I don't want it. I don't want it. Let's save, go back to our UI, hard reload, and you see it's quick showing, and then our text is showing. So that's how you can handle the loading state.